My name is Hannah, and I was 27 the night my mother turned my grandmother's legacy into a punchline. We were halfway through dinner when she set her fork down, leaned back like a queen making an announcement, and smirked at me across the table. "Oh, by the way," she said loudly, as if she'd just remembered something trivial. "I sold your daughter's jewelry, the one your grandmother gifted you, and used the money as a down payment on your stepdad's new car." For a second, I thought I'd misheard her. My jaw tightened, but I refused to give her the satisfaction of a reaction. Before I could say a word, my stepdad let out a laugh and clapped his hands together. "Finally making smart decisions," he crowed, like this was some kind of victory for the team. My mother basked in the attention, calling it a dusty old heirloom she'd cleverly turned into $12,000. She bragged about how smart she'd been negotiating, how proud my grandmother would be if she could see the shiny new car sitting in the driveway. Every word was a knife. That jewelry wasn't just metal and stones. It was the last promise my grandmother made to me, a piece of our family's story she'd trusted me to guard. Now my mother was laughing about selling it without even asking. I sat there, my face perfectly still, while something cold and sharp settled inside me. If my own mother could cash in my inheritance for applause at the dinner table, what else was she willing to sell? And when the truth about that sale finally exploded, would it destroy her or all of us? You've heard my mother brag about selling my inheritance for a car, but you haven't seen what happens when that smart decision blows up in her face. The buyer's furious phone call, the secret emails, the recordings, the lawsuit. Stay until the end to see how far I had to go to take back what was mine and make her pay for putting a price tag on her own daughter. The next morning, my phone started ringing before I'd even had coffee. I didn't recognize the number, so I almost let it go to voicemail, but something in my gut told me to pick up. "Is this Hannah?" A man's voice snapped the second I answered. "I need to know what game your family is playing with me." My fingers tightened around the phone. "Who is this?" "I'm the one who bought your jewelry," he practically shouted. "The emerald set. Your mother swore everyone agreed to the sale, and now I find out that's not true. Do you have any idea what kind of legal mess I could be dragged into if this was stolen property?" The room tilted for a moment. "I never agreed to anything," I managed. "That jewelry was left to me. I only found out she sold it last night." There was a beat of stunned silence on his end, then a bitter curse. "Then she lied to me in writing. I'm sending you a copy of the contract and her emails. There's a 7-day cancellation window if there was misrepresentation. I'm not going down for her lies." When the documents hit my inbox, my stomach flipped. In the contract, under owner, my mother had checked sole owner and typed my name in a line that read, "My daughter, Hannah, has consented to this sale." She'd even signed in a sloppy version of my handwriting. And there it was, in the fine print. The buyer could cancel within 7 days if the seller misrepresented ownership. We were on day 2. A slow, icy focus settled over me. She hadn't made some impulsive, heat-of-the-moment mistake at dinner. The email chain went back 3 months. I knew her passwords. Same pet name, same numbers. Always. I logged into her account. My hands steady, not shaking. Thread after thread told the same story, her joking about playing the devoted mom while cashing out, sending photos of my grandmother's note and calling it useful leverage. But what really made my chest tighten was a bank screenshot she'd sent to a friend. Only a part of the $12,000 went toward the car. The rest had been wired as a deposit to a cosmetic surgery clinic and an upscale weekend resort. No mention of supporting the family. She'd lied to him, too. My stepdad's texts in her inbox were full of worries about money and guilt about taking on a car payment. He had no idea the jewelry had funded her secret makeover and getaway. She was playing all of us. In that moment, the betrayal stopped being abstract and became a spreadsheet, a timeline, a strategy. This wasn't a stressed mother making a bad call. This was premeditated. If a betrayal has been carefully planned for months, is it still a mistake? Or is it a choice to hurt the people who trust you most? Knowing the truth and proving it are two very different things. The buyer's documents, the forged consent, the emails about her clever plan, they were powerful, but my lawyer wanted more. When I called the estate attorney's office and laid everything out, she listened without interrupting, then said, "You have a strong case for fraud and conversion, Hannah, but an admission in your mother's own words would make it undeniable. Don't confront her head-on yet. Let her talk." That was the day I stopped reacting and started acting. I apologized to my mother at dinner, told her I'd been overdramatic, that I was trying to move on. I complimented the car. I asked how it felt to finally drive something nice. Her eyes lit up, suspicion melting into smug satisfaction. "See? I told you this was for the best," she said, swirling her wine. "You're finally growing up." What she didn't know was that my phone, face down on the table beside my plate, was quietly recording. I played the obedient daughter, asked how she'd managed to get such a good price, how she'd convinced the buyer so quickly. She opened up like a faucet. Men like that love a sob story. Single mom, ungrateful daughter who never appreciates anything, heirloom just gathering dust. "He practically threw money at me," she said with a little laugh. "And the best part was watching your face when I told you. God, the look in your eyes." She trailed off, smiling to herself, like my shock had been some kind of twisted entertainment. Later that week, I heard her in the kitchen with her closest friend, so I hit record again from the hallway. "You actually forged her name?" her friend whispered. My mother scoffed. "Please. She never does anything with that stuff anyway. And honestly, hurting her a little is the only way she learns. If she feels it, she remembers it." My breath stuck in my throat as she continued, voice low but venomous. "My daughter thinks sentimentality is a personality. I'll shatter that fantasy for $12,000 any day. She can cry about legacy while I fix my face and take a weekend where nobody is complaining." Listening to that sentence felt worse than hearing about the sale itself. It wasn't desperation. It wasn't survival. It was enjoyment. I sent both recordings to my lawyer along with the emails and the contract. The reply was almost immediate. "This is exactly what we needed." I stared at my phone, hearing my mother's voice echo in my head, bragging about how good it felt to hurt me. When you secretly record your own mother just to keep her from rewriting reality, are you still her child? Or have you finally become her enemy? The next decision I made felt like stepping off a cliff. I chose to show everything to my stepdad. I waited until he came home from work alone, without the sound of her heels behind him. He tossed his keys into the bowl, already talking about a client, until he saw my face and stopped. "We need to talk about the car," I said quietly. He frowned. "If this is about last week, your mom already—" "It's not about last week," I cut in. "It's about how she paid for it." I pulled up the emails, the forged line about my consent, the bank screenshot with the transfer to the surgery clinic and resort. Then I played him the recording from dinner, where she treated my inheritance like a joke, and the one from the kitchen, where she admitted forging my name and said hurting me was the only way I learned. I watched his expression slowly crumble from confusion to disbelief, to something like nausea. She told me it was hers," he said hoarsely. "She said her mother gave it to her, that you didn't care about it. I thought it was between you two." "She lied to both of us," I said. "You laughed at dinner because you trusted her. I sat there in silence because I realized I couldn't." He sat down heavily, rubbing his face. "And the surgery? The hotel?" "Her idea of supporting the family, apparently." For the first time since he'd entered our lives, he looked less like my mother's teammate, and more like someone who had also been played. "Send all of this to me," he finally said. "If she dragged me into this mess, I deserve to know exactly how deep it goes." Sending him the files felt like choosing a side, and realizing he might actually be on mine. The second alliance came from a place I never expected. My grandmother. My mother's own mother. I'd always been told she was too sick to visit, that family drama had made things complicated. But in the leather notebook my grandmother left with the jewelry, there was an address and a phone number. One afternoon, I drove out to the small house written in her handwriting, heart thudding as I walked up the path. The woman who opened the door was older, frailer, but her eyes were sharp and familiar. "You're Hannah," she said softly, before I could even introduce myself. Inside, over cups of tea that neither of us really drank, I told her everything. The sale, the forged consent, the buyer's call, the recordings. When I played my mother's voice bragging about shattering my fantasy and using my pain as a lesson, my grandmother's hands started to shake. "She hasn't changed," she whispered. "When she was younger, she stole her sister's college fund and blamed it on a paperwork error. She pawned my wedding ring once and told everyone it was lost in a move. We covered for her because we thought she'd grow out of it." Tears welled in her eyes, not just for me, but for an old, unhealed wound. "I left those emeralds for you because I wanted one thing in this family that she couldn't twist, and she did it anyway." I felt something loosen in my chest at those words. It wasn't just about money or stones. It was about generations of people quietly patching over the damage one person caused. "I'm not covering for her," I said. "Not this time." My grandmother nodded slowly, resolve hardening in her features. "Then I won't either. If you're taking this public, I'll stand beside you." She won't hide behind my silence anymore. That night, my lawyer suggested a plan. A family gathering, framed as a memorial dinner for my grandmother's late husband, where the truth would be laid out in front of witnesses. Emails, recordings, the buyer's statement, and my grandmother herself. If the people who'd always believed my mother's version finally saw what she was capable of, there'd be no going back. When the people you always assumed would defend your mother quietly move their chairs to your side, what does family even mean anymore? Blood, or the ones who refuse to let you stand alone? We framed it as a simple family dinner to honor my grandfather's birthday. My mother loved anything that made her the center of a room, so she agreed instantly, already planning the menu and commenting on how nice it would be to have everyone together. She had no idea. The dining room filled up with relatives I hadn't seen in years. An aunt who always took my mother's side, cousins who believed every story she told, and of course my stepdad, hovering quietly near the wall, eyes giving nothing away. My grandmother arrived last. When my mother saw her at the door, she froze for a second, then forced a bright smile. "Mom, what a surprise," she said, but there was a crack in her voice. "Hannah invited me," my grandmother replied calmly. "It's good we're all here." We went through the motions at first. Small talk, clinking glasses, memories about my grandfather. My mother took every opportunity to present herself as the dutiful daughter and loving mom. I let her have the stage because I knew I was about to take it away. After dessert, I stood up and cleared my throat. "There's something I need to talk about," I said. "It's about Grandma's jewelry." The room shifted. My mother's smile tightened. "Hannah, this really isn't the time." "It's exactly the time," my grandmother interrupted, her voice stronger than I'd ever heard it. I placed a printed copy of the sales contract in the center of the table. "This is the contract for the sale of my inheritance," I said. "The one that states my mother is the sole owner and that I consented to the sale." Eyes scanned the page. Someone gasped when they saw my name written in a handwriting that was close to mine, but not quite. I never signed that, I continued. I never agreed. And the buyer called me the next day, furious, because he realized he'd been lied to. Before my mother could launch into her usual spin, I tapped my phone and let the first recording play. Her voice filled the room, bragging about turning a dusty heirloom into $12,000, mocking my reaction, talking about how clever she'd been. Then came the second recording, the one from the kitchen. The words hung like poison in the air. And honestly, hurting her a little is the only way she learns. I'll shatter that fantasy for $12,000 any day. My aunt's hand flew to her mouth. One cousin stopped recording on her phone, then started again, realizing what she was capturing. My mother's face went pale, then red, then something in between. "You recorded me?" she hissed. "You sneaky, ungrateful." "I recorded you so you couldn't call this a misunderstanding," I said. "So you couldn't pretend this was about helping the family." My grandmother reached into her bag and pulled out the leather notebook that had started all of this. "This is my handwriting," she said, flipping to the page where she had written that the emeralds were for me and me alone. "I left them to Hannah because I knew you would take anything you could get your hands on. I just didn't think you'd go this far." My mother stammered something about stress and bills, about being forced into a hard choice. That was when my stepdad spoke up, his voice steady but cold. "Forced?" he said. "You told me the jewelry was yours. You never mentioned forgery. You never mentioned surgery clinics or weekend resorts. You lied to me too." Every pair of eyes at the table shifted to her. The queen of the room suddenly had no supporters. On speakerphone, the buyer's voice cut in. He'd agreed to join the call at my lawyer's suggestion. He confirmed the misrepresentation, the forged consent, the 7-day cancellation window. "I'm not protecting her," he said flatly. "If this goes to court, I'll testify." My grandmother looked at my mother. Pain and fury mingled in her gaze. "From this day forward, you are no daughter of mine," she said quietly, but everyone heard it. "If you can sell your child's inheritance and laugh about the hurt you caused, you don't belong to this family." In that moment, my mother wasn't the victim of a misunderstanding or a misunderstood martyr. She was just a woman sitting alone at a table while everyone else slowly leaned away from her. Exposing your own mother in front of the entire family, when does it stop being justice and start looking like cruelty? After the gathering, there was no pretending things could be fixed with an apology and a few tears. My lawyer moved quickly. With the recordings, the contract, the buyer's cooperation, and my grandmother's written statement about her intentions, we had more than just a family dispute. We had a clear case of fraud, forgery, and conversion. The first formal demand letter offered a way out. Return the jewelry, compensate me for the damage, and we'd avoid court. My mother refused. She called it blackmail, accused me of trying to ruin her life, and insisted the whole family would come to their senses. They didn't. When the lawsuit was filed, it wasn't just my name on the plaintiff line. The buyer joined in, suing to rescind the sale and recover his money if the jewelry couldn't be returned. The court days blurred together at times, but certain moments burned into my memory. Watching my mother read her own emails out loud, forced to admit she'd forged my consent. Hearing the judge question her about using the money for elective surgery and vacations after claiming urgent financial need. Seeing her attorney flinch when the recordings played, echoing off the courtroom walls instead of our kitchen. In the end, the decision was brutally clear. The judge voided the sale, ordered the jewelry returned to me as the rightful heir, and granted damages, 3 times the value of the original sale, based on the deliberate fraud and emotional harm. $36,000, plus costs. The car went first. The lender wasn't interested in sentimental explanations. Then the house went on the market. My mother had always tied her worth to appearances. Nice car in the driveway, carefully curated social media, perfect holiday photos. Watching those symbols crumble wasn't sweet or triumphant. It was complicated. But consequences didn't stop at the legal system. Someone at the family gathering had posted a short clip online, my mother's voice bragging about shattering her daughter's fantasy for $12,000. It spread faster than I expected. Neighbors recognized her. Coworkers did too. Her employer, an office that advertised itself as family-centered, called her in for a meeting. Shortly after, she lost her job. Bad for the company's image, they said. Jake filed for divorce within a month of the judgment. In the separation agreement, he kept what was legally his and refused to co-sign any more loans or fresh starts. In one brutal line, he told her, "You taught me that if you'll sell out your own daughter, you'll sell out anyone." My grandmother rewrote her will, leaving everything she had, modest but hers, to me and my cousins, with one explicit clause: Laura was excluded, permanently. Socially, my mother found herself on an island. Friends stopped returning her calls. The people who once laughed at her jokes now avoided eye contact in public. She had spent years controlling the narrative, painting herself as the underappreciated hero of every story. Now, people had heard her without a filter, and they believed what they heard. Through it all, I felt a twisted mix of vindication and grief. My lawyer congratulated me. The buyer thanked me for doing the right thing, even returned the jewelry with a quiet apology for ever being involved. On paper, I'd won. Legally, financially, publicly. But standing in my room, holding the emerald necklace in my hands, I couldn't ignore the knot in my chest. When the person who betrayed you loses everything, money, house, marriage, reputation, are you supposed to feel satisfied, or does real revenge always come with a little bit of collateral damage inside your own heart? Months passed before my mother finally reached out. The messages started small: missed calls, a couple of texts asking if we could talk like adults. I ignored them at first. Then one afternoon, a longer message came through. She wrote about how she was in a tiny apartment now, how people whispered when she walked into the grocery store, how everyone turned against her because of one mistake. At the end, she wrote, "You got what you wanted. Are you happy now?" The thing was, I wasn't happy. I wasn't miserable either. I was freer. I had my own place, my own routines, therapy appointments circled on my calendar. The jewelry sat in a small safe, not on display, not on my neck. I wasn't ready to wear it yet. It felt like a relic from a simpler version of my life that no longer existed. I agreed to meet her in a cafe across town, neutral territory where neither of us could pretend we were back to normal. When I walked in, I almost didn't recognize her. She looked smaller somehow, the confidence she wore like armor visibly cracked. She tried to smile. "Hannah?" she said softly. "You look different." "So do you," I replied, sitting down. There was an awkward stretch of silence before she launched into it. "I've lost everything," she said, voice trembling just enough to draw sympathy from anyone listening. "The house, the car, my job, my reputation. People look at me like I'm a monster. Your grandmother cut me off. Jake left. Do you have any idea what that feels like?" I met her eyes. "Do you have any idea what it felt like?" I said. "To hear you talk about hurting me for fun? To watch you sell the last thing Grandma left me and turn it into a joke at dinner?" She flinched but kept going. Old habits die hard. "I was under pressure," she insisted. "Bills, aging, everyone judging me. I made a bad call. But you dragged me through court. You turned the whole family against me. You let strangers online tear me apart. You destroyed your own mother." "No," I said quietly. "You destroyed the version of yourself I was trying to love." She stared at me, angry tears building. "So what now?" she demanded. Do you want me to beg? Is that what will finally satisfy you? I don't want you to beg, I said. I wanted you to be someone I could trust. When you sold the jewelry, I thought the worst part was losing the heirloom. But then I heard you say that my pain was entertainment to you. That $12,000 was worth more than my trust. That's what I can't get past. For a moment, something like genuine regret flickered across her face. Maybe she was sorry for what she did. Maybe she was just sorry she'd been caught. I'm still your mother, she whispered. Blood is blood. I shook my head slowly. You taught me that blood isn't enough, I said. Family isn't who shares your DNA. It's who refuses to sell you out when it's convenient. It's who protects your pain instead of monetizing it. She looked away, jaw clenched, a tear finally slipping down her cheek. So that's it? She asked. You're cutting me off forever? I took a breath, feeling the weight of the answer. I'm not promising you forever or never, I said. I'm telling you this. I don't hate you. I'm not going to spend my life trying to hurt you back. But I also don't owe you access to me. Trust isn't a birthright. You spent years burning the bridge and expected me to keep rebuilding it. I'm done being the only one doing the work. We sat there in silence, two people connected by history but separated by choices. After a while, I stood up. Take care of yourself, I said. I hope you learn from this. I really do. But I'm not going to set myself on fire to keep you warm anymore. As I walked out of the cafe, the air felt strange, lighter, but edged with something bittersweet. Later that night, I finally opened the safe, took out the emerald necklace, and fastened it around my neck. I looked in the mirror and saw not just my grandmother's face in my own, but a woman who had chosen herself over inherited damage. After you've taken revenge, after the courts and the money and the public shame, one question still lingers. Does winning against the person who betrayed you ever truly make you happy? Or does real freedom come from finally accepting that sometimes the only way to protect your heart is to walk away from the people who broke it?